PMP exam students, a simple question for you. Do you know what capacity is? What is team capacity? Let us explore this topic right now. Consider if you're doing a 2-week sprint, working 6 hours a day toward backlog items, then you want to factor in the number of days and every person on the team working those same hours. Say for example, 10 days every person on the team working 6 hours unless they're split across multiple teams. This will need to be factored in as well. We'll have approximately 60 hours every sprint to start, which will be our baseline per sprint. Now, if somebody has, say, a holiday, we'll take 6 hours away, right? Because 6 hours a day will take time away from our capacity, time not actually spent on the work. Another consideration is our Scrum events. These take time away from the hours we are actually available. Thus, things like sprint planning, daily stand-ups, refinement sessions, review, and retrospectives all come out of your available capacity. This is time that you're not directly working on your backlog items. You're maybe talking about them and you're planning them, but you're not actually working on them. It is recommended on average to take about 10 hours right off the top, which means the 60 hours becomes 50 hours. To some, that might seem like a lot, but it is reality. Typically, it's about 10 hours of sprint just on the Scrum events. So, now we have 50 hours, then we take time away for everything else. If you have a day off, you take 6 hours away. If you have training sessions, you take the time away. If you need to take your dog to the vet, you take an hour or 2 away. Hence, all those things that take you away from doing work on your backlog, you take time away. What you're left with is the amount of actual time you have available to do your work. This amount can be surprising to people, the reality of how few hours there are. I even like to do things like use something like poker chips or paperclip, something physical to represent the hours. What you'll see is, you have this monstrous pile of chips or clips that represent your unavailable time compared to this very tiny pile of actual available hours. The reason I like to use something physical is you can actually see it, and it really cements that concept that you just don't have a lot of time to do your jobs. Now that we've got our available capacity for a given sprint, the next thing we do is during sprint planning, we start taking on work. We volunteer for stories, and as we're volunteering for those stories, we break those stories down into tasks. Of course, for each task, we estimate the task in hours. Remember I said stories, you estimate in story points, tasks you estimate in hours. Now, the reason is with stories we don't know who's going to do the work when we're estimating, but with tasks, we do. We know exactly who's going to do them because someone volunteers to take on those tasks. Generally, the estimate is very small since tasks are typically a day or 2 at most done in very, very small units of work. You should be pretty good at estimating those in ideal hours, not padded hours, the actual hours to do the work. You can think about it this way, the calendar time is 2 weeks, that's when we expect to get work done. The actual time to do the work, the ideal hours, that's the increments in which we're estimating our tasks. What we do is every time we estimate a task, we take hours away from our available capacity for each of the tasks for which we volunteered. If I have to go build something, I'm going to estimate that. Let's say 12 hours. I'm going to take 12 hours away from my available capacity, and you keep doing that for every task that you take on. Now, sooner or later, you're going to start approaching zero. It's very important to say, approaching zero rather than saying reaching zero. If you have an hour or 2 left, I suggest you stop. Don't take on any more work because these are still estimates. They're still likely to be wrong. Don't overcommit yourselves. If you see that you're getting close to zero, it's probably time to stop taking on more work. What winds up happening is you take all these items on, you approach zero, and when you've reached that point you now say, I can't take on any more work because I am out of time. I'm out of capacity for this sprint.